Seems like I'm a frequent flyer at this place, but I'm picking something up that I'm really excited to share with you. Let's go check it out. See these enormous Boston ferns? They are $21.98 each, and we're gonna get one, and we're gonna divide it into 4 containers.
Hi, it's Steph, and here is the hanging basket that I purchased recently at Home Depot. It's a very large hanger, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it into these 2 hanging baskets and these 2 urns that I have in the back here. Now, I've had these urns and these hanging baskets planted with these Boston ferns for the last couple of years. One year I did overwinter them successfully in my basement, but last year I didn't get to it and they died back. They are not hardy in my zone 6B. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this up into these 4 containers, and I think it's going to turn out well. Here are the tools that I'm going to use to divide it. I have this Corona saw, and I also have this regular hand saw that is in my husband's tools. I've used this a bunch of times to divide perennials, and it works well to like saw through roots, especially if they're really kind of intertangled and gnarly. So here's my tools. Pair of gloves. Just be careful when you're cutting through the plant so you don't hurt yourself, obviously. And yeah, so I'm going to cut it. I'm going to figure out the best way to cut it so that I can get 2 larger divisions for the urns and 2 smaller divisions for these hanging baskets. The first thing I'm going to do is try to take off the hanger. Usually they're just clips on the side of the container, and you just have to find them through all of these fronds here. Yep. And then they just clip on the sides. Now I can already tell that this fern is going to be difficult to cut through because it is very root bound. It got this large in this little, I think it's a 12-inch container. So here are the plastic hangy things, and you just kind of unclip them. And in this basket there are 4 of them. Yeah, it's a 12-inch hanger. And there it is. So the hanger's out. And that was pretty moist, so it slid out pretty well. Okay, so you want to lay the root ball on its side and just kind of look for a spot where it would be a good division point. In this case, it's hard to tell because it's so dense that I'm just going to have to kind of just swing it, really. And so I'm going to try to separate the fronds. And I'm just going to kind of cut it off center. I'm going to use this hand saw. I think this is going to be my best bet. And I'm going to cut it off center so that I end up with a bigger clump on one side than the other. The larger clump I'm going to divide for the 2 urns, and the smaller clump I'm going to divide for the 2 hanging baskets. So this is my smaller side and my larger side. Urns, hanger. Just kind of gently try to pry them apart. There we go. Once you divide it the first time, now you're ready to divide it the second time. So this is for my hanging baskets. Then I'm going to go ahead and now just cut it right down the middle. You can divide up your fronds a little bit. so you have an idea of the breaking point, and so you can end up with sort of an even amount on either side. There we go. So one seems a little bit bigger than the other, but these will fill out fast. So those are for my hangers. And this will be for the urns. So here are my two hanging baskets. Now these are a cone-shaped hanging basket, and they're like this wicker material. They look a little aged. I've had them for a couple of years, but I think I can get one more year out of them before the chains get a little too rusty. But I think they're fine for now. So I'm just gonna move the chains over, and I'm gonna remove all of this fern from last year and kind of clean up the baskets and get them ready for the new divisions. Okay, so I prepped the container with just some fresh potting soil. When I removed the ferns, they were really root bound, so I just removed everything and I'm starting from scratch. So I put a little bit of potting soil at the bottom, and I did add some startup fertilizer. Now you could use Osmocote if that's all you have on hand, or Plant Tone, but because I happen to have some of this Espoma Biotone, which is also a good startup fertilizer, I just sprinkled a little bit of that in each container, and I think that will help these divided ferns get a good start. So now I'm just placing my divisions. And I'm going to pot up one at a time. Now when you're potting these up, if you feel like one has a little bit more than the other, because sometimes it's hard to tell when you're dividing them, you could just cut another little piece off to add to the container that needs a little more fullness, just so they start out kind of even. So I'm going to cut this little piece off to add to the less full container. There we go. Now whenever you divide a plant, they don't look great the first couple of weeks, but then in no time they look fine. And I pay $21.98 for this hanger, and I'm getting 4 annual containers out of it. And if I decide to overwinter them, I might even have them sticking around until next year. All right, now that I have it placed, I'm just going to fill it in with the rest of my potting mix around it. We're onto the urns now. I'm going to try to dig out as much of that as I can to see how much soil I can keep in the container, because it is a larger container. And so depending on how it goes, I might have to remove everything. If not, I'll see what I can salvage. Well, that put up a fight.
Fern roots are very fibrous and dense, and so yeah, it was quite a job to get that out. It definitely worked up a sweat. But now the container is cleaned out and ready to be planted.
I'm going to loosen this soil up a little bit because it's been in this container for a little while. I cleaned out most of the bigger roots that I came across. And so this is now just serving kind of as a filler. And I'm going to place all the good soil around the fern when I plant it. I'm just putting in some more startup fertilizer like I did on the hanging baskets. This is just the biotone.
Here are my urn ferns, and this one looks nice and full. This one doesn't look as full, but it just needs to recover. And in no time they'll be fine. And something else that I do also is I do know that that corner gets a little bit more sun than this other corner. So what I'll do is every couple of weeks or so, I'll kind of just rotate the planters so that they can grow more evenly.
So here are the hanging baskets. I really like the way that they look, and like they do fill out. So even if you do this and you're like, oh man, I made a mistake, no, because they will get bigger. And look, I just paid $21.98 and I got 4 summer containers out of them. And this one looks a little fuller than that one, but nothing to worry about. Just water them consistently and they'll be beautiful. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.